in your plants too. But you want to kind of direct your light down on your plant. That's what the reflector's for, and it helps, you know, spread out and grow.
And does it matter really? I mean, because it's Sunday, it's cloudy today. There's still grass out. Things are growing.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, how important is light for your plants?
Well, I know people that have grown plants with, you know, your normal light bulb. I mean, light's important, period. Just like your house plants. You know, they need a certain amount of light. In our industry, we have a big, not really a big greenhouse, but a fairly large one. And our lighting's really important because with the change of lighting and different things in our environment, it will cause them to hermaphrodite or turn male, which you don't want. One male plant can ruin an entire greenhouse because pretty much in flower, it's a whole bunch of females looking to have babies. And one male, and all it takes is one male to ruin an entire greenhouse. So you don't want to shock your plants. You don't want to change things too much, too drastically. It's real important. In veg is where we do all of our trimming and plants to come out. But once we put them into the bud cycle, you really don't want to play with them too much, because if you shock them, your chances of it hermaphroditing, which is male and female, or sometimes just going straight male, increases drastically. It's real important to maintain your environment, your temperature areas, your humidity, your airflow, because like in any garden or anything else, we also have insects, different types of molds to grow if you don't have the proper ventilation or I guess what I'm trying to say is your ventilation and your lighting are very important, but your temperature also is too. You don't want them to get too hot. You don't want to get too cold. You don't want your environment to be too humid or not humid enough, because if it's too dry, then they just dry out and they suck a lot more water. You have to pay attention. If it's too humid, you run into the problems of different types of funguses and molds that can grow.
So what's the difference? What you got one more there too? What's that one?
This is the high pressure sodium, and it puts out the more reddish spectrum. And
so you want to switch
between flower.
So you want to switch, like the other one's good for vegetation, the last one, and this one's best for when you're making the buds come out and get big and sticky.
A lot of you have big
cannabis
ballasts.
come out and become medical, if you will.
What's that?
Or the cannabis to come out of the plant and become medical.
Right.
Instead of good sticky bud. They call it what they want.
With these being big, most of the ballast that you buy, you can switch your ballast between metal halide and high pressure sodium because it takes a different electrical.
I see. Now, and I noticed that those, like, do you just take a hammer and punch real hard in your light socket, or is there something, you got to buy something special to put that special bulb in, it looks like?
No, actually the lights, they're interchangeable generally. Into your socket.
So I can just put a plant in my sink, let's say, and screw one of those bulbs into the little deal in my kitchen sink.
These actually have special ballasts. You can run them 110 or 220, and then there's even a 208 setting, which is considered more economical. But they suck a lot of juice. Your power bill will go up drastically in using these. There's another kind that they have that's T5, and it's more fluorescent, has a bunch of little bulbs and direct, and they run about 400 watts. They don't suck as much juice, and they're more spectrum towards the blue for growing. I know people that have just used a bluer spectrum, and you know, it takes a little bit longer for your plants to flower with them, but I mean, you don't need the specialized bulbs or you know, to change from the blue spectrum to the red. Some people will argue that, but it's just a difference in your plants, and it takes a little bit more time. But your lighting is very important.
There was another bulb we were talking about, T5.
Right, the T5. It's.
Did you have that here? Or is,
no, I.
Did you
forgot
couldn't find
to bring it.
No. Could somebody come out and behind door number 2, there's a long fluorescent bulb sitting back here. If somebody could just bring that out to Jason, and so we can let the viewers see it. And what's the difference between, now it's a fluorescent bulb, right? I mean, is that like the same as a fluorescent bulb in our shop, or?
Well, the different fluorescents, you can buy them with, okay, this is out of a T5, and it's just a tiny little fluorescent bulb, but it's the spectrum of the light that it puts out, and you can buy them in your local hardware stores or sometimes Walmart or any of your big box stores. Generally, your T5s you'll find more in your local greenhouse stores, but it's the spectrum that's important. Like I said, you can grow with pretty much any spectrum of light. You know, the blue tends to add to the more fullness and better growth, but like I said, I know people that have done it with just your regular fluorescents too. The more experienced growers have a tendency to switch lights. They go, for our vegetative state, we use the more blue, and when we go into flower, we switch to the more redder spectrum, and it helps on the harvest and the yield for there. But they're expensive. You know, your lightings are exceptionally expensive.
Now, and this like these big bulbs in our earlier discussions, you said, I mean, does it matter 1,000 watt or 100 watt? You know what I mean? Can I get a 400 watt sodium or metal halide or 600 and get the same effect out of my plant? You know what I mean? What's the difference in the numbers, I guess, in the wattage and the lighting? And will one of these bulbs equal the same as these big giant bulbs?
No, a T5 is a set, and I think there's 13 or 14 of them in there. Don't count me on the numbers.
Oh, so it's generally not just a single bulb.
It's not a single bulb. It's a grouping of them, and they have little reflectors in them to help spread the light. Your standard T5s are about 400 watts, and which is less than half of what either of these other two bulbs that I have are. Your environment and what you have, it definitely does make a difference. If you have a lot more, well, take us in California. We don't get this, our environment's different. We get different sunlight, so when we grow things, it doesn't grow as well here as there because they get more sunlight. They have, you know, things are different. The more light you grow, the bigger, you know, you use, the bigger your plants will be. Your yield's going to be better with bigger lights. They're also not necessarily cost effective for your smaller grower at home. A lot of the patients try to grow their own, and you know, they can't afford the extra $30 a month that these big lights would go.
Okay. Now we're starting to run a little short on time, so let me just go over a couple little things. Now you also have another little device that's pretty important.
Well, your timer, and you can get these local hardware store. They even have them at your.
And that just gives you a light balance on how long you want to have them on and off, right? So you can plug it into there, and it'll turn on and off.
It'll turn on and off, and it helps you not having to remember that, you know, 7 o'clock in the morning that you need to turn your lights on, and you know, say 10 o'clock at night or whatever, however your cycle's going to go. With your timer, with just taking care of your plants and watering and giving them the nutrients, you want to keep your lighting consistent. The earth rotates and it's consistent. Sun comes up, goes down, consistent. With your plants, you want to treat them the same way because you can throw them into shock by changing your lighting systems all the time.
Okay, well, we better wrap this up, and I guess we didn't have our number up, but we did want to hear from you. So we'll get that information up there sooner next week. We want your calls. We want your questions. We want to be here to help you. And if anybody has something quick they want to ask, either Cherie or Jason before we moved on, and Tiffany shows us how to make cannabis butter. That's going to be our next bit here. Has anybody got anything they want to ask? No? Okay, so I want to thank you guys for tuning in, and stay tuned because we're going to go to a quick word from public service announcements for some people that support us in the community. And after, hopefully, we take this one call. You're on the air with Growing Green. Who we got, caller? Okay, I think that's bad. Sounded bad. Okay, phone bad, cast good. We'll get back to calls next week, folks. I want to make sure you know how to make this cannabis butter. This is going to be exciting. We're going to go to a quick word from our sponsors, and we'll come back with Tiffany and her assistant from Tiffany's Treats, and show you how to make cannabis butter. Stay tuned. Come on back.
It's your community. It's your TV. And it's your community access station. MCAT, Missoula Community Access Television. TV by you, for you.
Hi, I'm Tiffany with Tiffany's Treats. Thanks for coming back again this week. Today we're going to be making cannabis butter. This is Chantel. She's going to be my partner and helping us today. Thanks for joining in.
Thank you.
So today, to make cannabis butter, I'm going to go over a couple of things that you're going to need. You're going to need a crock pot for even heating. You're going to need an ounce of cannabis, about a cup of water, a pound of butter, a strainer. I like to use a pillow cloth. It makes for easier handling if you cut it to a smaller size. And then I just set it inside the strainer like this for later use. So let's get to making some butter. So into the crock pot, we're going to put an ounce of cannabis. And then I just like to put enough water to just over moisten the cannabis. I don't like to put too much water in. It makes it a little bit harder when you're trying to separate it. So I put enough water into the cannabis to just get it quite moist so that it also absorbs the water before it absorbs the butter. So we're going to get the cannabis mixed in, and I'm going to talk about why butter is good. Butter is good because it's versatile in almost all ingredients. You can have it with your steak, you can have it on your toast in the morning, you can have it with lunch. You know, eating cannabis is really important, not just smoking cannabis. I mean, it does a lot of good to our body to ingest it, and does a lot of beneficial things. If you have ailments that you're in a lot of pain or other things, you should definitely look it up on the internet and find out how cannabis can help you by ingesting it. So after the water's put into the crock pot, we're also going to add the butter. And I like to bring it up to a boil on high, so I put the lid on it as soon as I put the butter in to keep the heat into the crock pot. And then after it gets to a melted stage, I mix it, leave it on high for about 2 hours. And I like to make my butter before I go to bed at night. It's better than, you know, sitting around waiting for it all day. I like to get up in the morning, take it out from the heat, have a cup of coffee, and then deal with the butter. So it's good to let it cook overnight, because then we are making sure we get all the cannabinoids out of the cannabis itself and then putting it into the butter. So we have a crock pot over here that has been cooking overnight. And Chantel, if you want to help lean out this. And I like to let it gets very hot, so I like to let it sit but still be a liquid. So we put out the pillowcase and we dump the butter and cannabis into the pillowcase. Make sure you got all that good stuff out of there. There you go. Thank you, Chantel. And you put it out of the way.